Good evening, everyone. This is Scott Jones in Linden, Kansas. This is my EDL 851, Module 13, case study. This is going over evaluation of school personnel. After reading the case study, there's certain questions that have left unanswered. First of all, will be the background of the administrator. We don't know how long he's been with the school district, how he's tenured, what his track record is. We don't really know a whole lot about him. We don't know if he's fairly stable in the community, fairly stable in the building, if there's a lot of respect for him and his decisions, or if he's a new gun and this is one of his first ever administrative decisions. We also don't know a whole lot about Miss Stevens' track record. We know she's new to the district. We don't know if she's an older teacher, a younger teacher, inexperienced, experienced. We don't know if she was fired from her last job. We don't know a whole lot about her. We know she's fairly educated, but we also don't know any type of educational background in the scenario either. We don't know a whole lot about the evaluation process. We've seen what the evaluation form looks like. We've seen what the administrator has walked us through or has talked us through as far as informal observations and formal observations. We don't know if this is the first evaluation, the second evaluation, the third evaluation, or if this is just part of the process. We also don't know a whole lot about the district policy. We don't know where they fit into this role at, and we don't understand what happens after all of this takes place. We don't know anything about the conclusion. Okay, moving on to the questions involved in the case study. Question number 1, how does one conduct frequent classroom visits, walkthroughs, and observations to provide constructive, meaningful, actionable feedback? It'd be nice to know the district's stance on the walkthrough observations, what they're looking to gain from it. Some districts require this to be an actual management tool where they monitor teacher performance, whether teachers are meeting expectations, whether we have the school culture that we want, the classroom culture that we want, so on and so forth. We also don't know if there's any feedback provided on a regular basis. I've been in districts that provide a lot of feedback in random walkthroughs. I've been in districts that provide no feedback in random walkthroughs. Is there something you expect your teachers to focus on every week, every quarter, etc.? We've discussed this in past modules, and as a future administrator, there's something that I would like to take into consideration. Question number 2, what sources and types of data can be used to provide feedback to teachers so they can improve student learning? We can obviously use formative and summative assessments. We can also use informal observations, or we can use the time-honored commitment of standardized test scores. What role do formal and informal assessments play in evaluating the effectiveness of a school's instruction and programs? Formal assessments have always been the baseline for academic achievement. Okay, are we at standardized tests? Are we at the grade level? Okay, informal assessments have been known to benchmark individual student performances. Are they with their peers where they need to be? Are they mastering certain subject matters? So on and so forth. What types and sources of data can be used to monitor and evaluate instructional strategies? Informal observations, random checks for understanding, and again, your state standardized test scores. What are some of the sources of teacher evaluation data and information? We can go ahead and evaluate professional development opportunities. Have they been engaged in these opportunities in the past? Are they looking to become a better teacher? Or are they just content with where they're at? Collaboration amongst the staff and with the students, and also how they fit into their professional development or professional responsibilities and capabilities. And again, we've talked about this in past modules. This is possibly a case of how good of a fit is she for the district. All right, again, having the proper fit in the classroom, proper fit within the staff is much more important than educational level in certain circumstances. What are the responsibilities of a principal for helping this teacher become more effective? I do think you have certain responsibilities as an administrator as far as guiding your staff. You have to include them in your vision. And one thing that's really worked well in the past districts and in the district I'm currently in is partnering them up with new teachers up with higher quality older teachers and providing them up with mentors. And then you provide these mentors opportunities to observe them as much as once a quarter. This allows those mentor teachers to sit in a classroom and go through and just understand and observe where that certain teacher's at. They can give them hints, they can give them tips along the way, and then they can go ahead and guide them towards that professional learning opportunities that we want. You can provide positive feedback when needed. You can also provide constructive criticism when needed. I tell all of our players, I'm going to be your biggest critic. That's what I'm paid to do. I'm also going to be your biggest fan when things are done correctly. And that's something that's important for people to hear. They need to hear the positive side, the positive outlook, not just always the criticism. We also need to allow opportunities for professional development. Our district is very good at that. Anytime a teacher feels like they want to take on some type of professional development, we allow them to do so. What teacher characteristics and behaviors, if any, are known to be associated with teacher effectiveness and should be observable to a supervisor during classroom observations? These are all things that you can observe in a classroom setting. Without knowing a whole lot about the teacher or the students, you can easily observe and feel and sense these opportunities being available. First would be your classroom management skills. Okay? Do you have control of the classroom? Are the students on task? Are they learning the way they're supposed to? Are they doing what you would like them to do? Classroom engagement, whether or not the students are engaged in the learning process or if they're just idle participants. You can also see whether or not a teacher has a well-prepared lesson plan. You can see if they prepared themselves for class or not. You can feel that. You can sense that. You can also sense in the students if this is a normal lesson or if this is out of the ordinary. And that's very important as you go through with your informal observations. Excuse me. You can also feel that, and if it's out of the ordinary and it's not customary, you know that this is just a show for your observation. Student involvement, how engaged are the students in the learning process and how are we involving them? You can also sense this, the classroom culture. What, if anything, can be done by the supervisor to obtain an accurate impression of how the teacher usually acts in a classroom situation? As I spoke of, it's very customary for our district to have random walkthroughs as much as once a week, and this can be anywhere from an elementary principal to a high school principal to the superintendent popping his head in the door. And that's a great way to go about your business. It's a great way to understand and interact with your staff, understand what their individual needs are, and how you can meet those needs, how you can help them be successful. It's also a way to engage with the students. They need to know that you're a part of the education process. They don't need to see a superintendent only at times where they are in trouble, a principal only at times when they're in trouble, and you don't need to sit in your corner office in the building or in your district office uptown. You need to make sure that you are visible and attainable to these students, and they need to know that you care about them. That's a great way to understand what your school culture feels like and looks like. Okay, how are the students in the halls? How are they on a game day? How are they after a game day? How are they during the week? All right, it's important for you to understand and see what goes on in your district. What factors seem to be influencing the conclusions drawn by the principal based on his observation of Mrs. Stevens? The three things we see are classroom apathy, the low student engagement, and the final thing he checks is not responsive to supervision. And the things the conclusions that can be drawn from these is what expectations are set in the classroom, and something that's not gone over in this case study, and we don't know what the expectations of the community are, expectations of the school are, or expectations of the individual teacher are. And all three of those things can play a role in your classroom management structure and how your students are engaged in that class. I've been involved in communities and districts where education is not a priority, where students are forced to be in school and they don't necessarily want to be there. I've also been in districts where it is a high priority that their students are there and they are learning at the highest degree possible. Each one brings its own challenges. Low student engagement, too much lecturing and not enough critical thinking. They say there's too much lecturing here, not enough critical thinking skills. Some of that can be attained through the lesson, some of that can be attained through the approach, some of that can be attained through how you engage your students and how you want them to think, how you want them to learn. Again, some of this can be just based off subject matter as well. There are subject matters that are very easy to engage students in, and there are subject matters that are much more difficult to provide cooperative learning opportunities. Not responsive to supervision. Again, we spoke of this in previous slides. We don't know if this was the first time that she has been observed, and if she has been not responsive to that, or we don't know what the past has been for this administrator or the teacher, what their past relationship has been like, whether she's been unresponsive to any type of criticism or any type of structure. We don't know a whole lot about that. The strengths and weaknesses, the evaluation system. Strengths are it's very easy to read and easy to understand. Weaknesses, it's very subjective. It's not a rubric style of assessment. So it's basically based on where you feel like they fit in the module. There's no clear objectives. And as far as I've seen, there's no place for comments and improvements. School board and administrative policy in our district, we have an open door policy. As I spoke of, it's very customary for our administrators to do random walkthroughs at least once a week. It's how they stay in tune with what's going on in their building, what curriculum is being taught, and how they stay connected with our school culture. I've also included a link to our evaluation system if anybody is curious. Feel free to hop on there and go through that. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me. Whether there's any state laws or court decisions that have a bearing on whether the teacher in the case can be legally dismissed. Excuse me again. None that I know of. It's been a very open district, very accepting of the evaluation process. And as far as I know, there hasn't been a whole lot of turmoil or people refusing to sign their evaluation at the end of the day. Again, thank you for going through this module with us. I appreciate everything that you do as far as going through and improving as far as going through and reading and researching these modules, and I appreciate all the feedback that you guys provide. Thank you.